Welcome back to the Manor. Julian McBain here, and we are back with personal finance for gamers. Today we're going to be talking about the credit report. I know, no one wants to hear about it, but it's really important that you know what goes into this, you know what these credit bureaus are talking about you with. So that is the goal for today. We're going to go through credit reports, debt to income ratio, the credit bureaus, all of that in this video. But before we get started, if you're new to the channel, welcome to the Manor. Please take a moment and subscribe down below. We are on the road to 13 million subscribers, one subscription at a time, so make sure you subscribe. Also, please consider going to patreon.com/JulianMcBain if you want to support my work. If you do, you'll get exclusive content, including personal finance for gamers, which acts like a textbook for these videos. Plus, I am releasing all kinds of new content. I'm doing some first-person shooter work that's going to be exclusive to my patrons for a little bit. I've got some VR content that I'm working on. The raw video will be given to the patrons only, whereas edited content will be going up on the main channel. So if you're interested in seeing that raw content, seeing the behind the scenes stuff that goes on for that, please feel free to become a member. That hasn't started releasing yet, but it will be in the next couple of months. So if you think I'm worth supporting, please consider it. Okay. The credit report. Everyone cringes when they think credit report. I cringe when I think credit report, and my credit's not terrible. What is in a credit report? We're going to go through that today, starting with where do the credit reports come from? So there are three primary places that credit reports come from. They aren't the only credit bureaus out there, but they are the ones that everyone pays attention to. These credit bureaus are Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. What they do is they pay attention to what your financial activity is. Banks report your activity to them. Other institutions report your activity to them, and they report to everyone else what your credit history, what your finance history is like. Because they have all of this data on you, in fact, they're probably the largest repository of data on you that existed prior to Google, which, as we all know, has more data on all of us than God. Because they have all of this, you are able to retrieve your credit report for free every single year by law. All three bureaus are required by law to give you your report every single year. That does not mean they need to release your credit score. And you need to be careful of the site you go to, because there are a lot of sites that are selling like identity theft protection in order for you to get your credit score, your credit report. That is strictly not necessary. By law, the credit bureaus have to give it to you for free. The correct site, it's owned by the credit bureaus and monitored by the government to make sure they're compliant, is annualcreditreport.com. One word, that's ANNUALCREDITREPORT.com. I'll make sure to put a link in the description if I have enough brain power to remember to do so. They're obligated to provide you your credit report every single year. I highly recommend you do so. The best way to do it is every 4 months, pick a different bureau. And that just lets you keep track of stuff. Credit reports are hard to read to the inexperienced. So, recommendation. Bankers can't pull your credit report. They legally can't. You have to do it yourself. And in fact, most banks have a restriction where they can't even let you use their terminals to pull it at the bank. So what you do is you access your credit report, you immediately print it. Immediately print it, because as soon as you click off, the credit bureau is not obligated to give it back to you. They did their due diligence. They're actually kind of incentivized to do that so they can keep all of their stuff hush-hush. So as soon as you get it pulled up, print it off on hard copy or print it to a PDF, because, you know, we're kind of in that stage now. Bring it to your banker and say, please help me understand what I'm looking at. Most bankers with any form of experience are going to have the knowledge necessary to go through the credit report. Now, what do I need by any form of experience? More than a year, sometimes 2. Some of them don't get credit reports very often. As a banker, I encourage my customers to bring credit reports to me, so I got very used to it. Be patient with your banker, but they're still going to have seen more of them than you are, so bring it to your banker. They'll be able to assist you with understanding your credit report and what's out there against you, or even in your favor. And it's important that you know that, because that's your life in a nutshell. And this is one of the reasons that there's been like a lot of pushback on social credit systems, because it's the thing about finance is hard numbers. You know, 2 + 2 = 4. That's doable. You really can't put a calculus on action, and it's very subjective, which is why social credit bad, financial credit functional. There's some good and bad that goes in with it, but there's a scientifically understandable reason for a financial credit report to exist, or financial credit score to exist. So what goes into your credit report? Basically, oh crap. Forgot to fix the attachments. Oh, you know, no, we'll do it this way. Basically, your whole life goes into your credit report. I got to do the Entropia universe thing here while we're doing this. Your name or names, including all aliases you've ever held ever. In fact, my Julian McBain alias, I believe, now appears on my credit report because I reported it to FINRA, and I had to do that by law. So yes, you can look me up. You can look me up on FINRA. You can see that I'm not, pulling your leg. I have been registered in, I have been registered with my securities licenses. You can go to broker check, put in, I believe you can look it up by my alias, Julian McBain, but as you all know, my name is Paul Vallerand, Vallerand. You can look me up. You can see my experience and the limitations that are on that experience. So you know I'm not just blowing smoke up you. I think I've been very transparent about that, but I wanted to kind of put that out there now. Today's the 7th of January. For those of you who are new to the channel, I do actually keep a very detailed spreadsheet of all of my profits and losses in Entropia universe. That was the wrong one. Oh, you have to do one at a time. Stupid. I mean realistic, but stupid. Anyway. Let's get back to it. Where was I? Oh. All names you've ever had, including aliases. 10 years worth of addresses. At least. The last time I checked mine, I think I saw it coming. I think it circled all the way back to when I lived in this home the first time. Employer info, also going back as far as 10 years. In any outstanding accounts that you have, installment or revolving, bad checking accounts might be on there. Generally not. They've got their own system for that. Collection accounts are going to be on there. All of those will be in the report. For those accounts that are outstanding, especially those in collections, there will be phone numbers. If you see something you don't recognize, call the phone number associated with that institution and say, hey guys, what's going on here? A lot of these places, they're trying to be honest. They're not out there to screw you. So if you dispute something, there is actually an obligation. If you dispute something, the credit bureau has to go to that source of debt and say, what's going on with this? And they have to provide some sort of an answer, or the credit bureau is required to remove it from the credit report. So if you see something that's hinky, then you need to call on it immediately, find out what's going on. That's how you prevent identity theft. It's also how you make sure you don't miss out on things that you didn't realize were still outstanding debts. You're like, oh, I can pay that, and then it's off my record. And here's the thing: some debts, not all debts are created equal. Some debts, if you're behind, it'll take 8 to 10 points off your credit score. Others, like utilities, can do 100. So pay attention to that. And it doesn't take much for a utility to be 100 points off your credit score. Bad accounts will remain on your credit for 7 years. That being said, a bad account that's paid off does not negatively impact you in the same way that a bad account that's outstanding does. Does it not impact you at all? No, there will be an impact. But the impact will be significantly less than if you just let it go. So if you find bad accounts, please call on the, stop. Please take the time, call the debtor or the source of the debt, say, look, what's going on here? How can we fix this? And as long as you're making payments, most places are willing to work with you. Most, if not all, are willing to work with you as long as you're making honest payments to them. So what is a credit score? A credit score is a number between 350 and 850 that gives you a numeric value of where you are on the sliding scale of credit worthiness. Is this number absolute? No. You can have a really good credit score and have something, a blemish on your record that prevents a bank from lending to you. Not very often, but it does happen. I've seen like 720s get rejected because of a foreclosure 5 years ago. It's like, well, how do they get their score up that high? Because it doesn't work the same. You can have lower credit scores and still be lent $15,000. It isn't just the score. The score is supposed to be a quick snippet picture of what your overall credit looks like. And a number of factors go into this. Let's talk about those now. First is, how much credit do you have outstanding? Does that mean available credit versus credit you've used? This is where revolving debt's really important. Because if you have half a dozen credit cards, each with $3,000 credit limits, and you have nothing out on them, that's going to positively impact your credit score immensely. Does that mean you want to have a huge number of credit cards that could be outstanding liabilities? No. But it does mean manage your revolving credit carefully so you can use that revolving credit to benefit you. The older the accounts you have, the better they impact your score. So if you've got a credit card for a year versus a credit card for 4 years, the card that you've had for 4 years is much better for you than the card you've had for 1. Does that mean the 1 year credit card's a detriment to you? After it's beyond the first year, no. Because when you do apply for the card, it does incur an average of 8 points off your credit score, but beyond that first year, it's neutralized. So what other factors are involved? This is where debt-to-income ratio comes in. And you're like, what the hell is a debt-to-income ratio? Debt-to-income ratio is the ratio of money that you put toward debt out of your total income. So if you make $3,000 a month and you use $2,000 a month in order to pay all of your debts, and we're going to get into what the definition of debt is in this context in just a minute, you're at a 66% debt-to-income ratio. Now, does that mean it's straight up debt as we think of debt? No. Debt in this context is the absolute form of debt. Regular maintenance of your life. What is your rent? What is your mortgage? What is your credit card payments? How much do they expect you to pay for food every month? This is your utility bills. Actually, I don't think food is on there because it's hard to calculate, but your utility bills. Fixed payments. The entire fixed expenses portion of your budget is technically a form of debt that you pay every single month. And that's just what you need in order to live a normal life. That goes into your debt-to-income ratio because the bank, when they're lending to you, needs to make sure that you're going to be able to service that debt. If they lend to you and you're not able to service that debt, that means the bank is being predatory. It's actually a crime, which is why they're going to refuse to lend to you if you can't necessarily service the debt, or if there's a reason for them to be concerned on whether or not you can service the debt. This is an important factor because there are plenty of people who are like, well, when I need the money, I can't get the money from the bank. Because the bank sees there's a good chance you won't be able to pay back the debt. That's how that works. And yes, I know it's difficult. It's hard for you to, it's hard to deal with because when you need the debt, it's usually when you're in dire straits. But in order to be responsible and not put you in worse straits later, the bank has to take that into account. This is the lesson we learned back in 2007 and 2008. This is the lesson learned, and which is why lending got so much tighter after that. And after this one, it's going to get tighter again. So just be aware of that. So that's debt-to-income ratio. Ideally, you're going to follow the rule of 40 when it comes to debt-to-income ratio. The rule of 40 is a basic finance rule. It's not well known, but it's one you want to keep in mind. What is the rule of 40? 40% rules all. And interestingly enough, it kind of falls into the same rule in the Bible because you'll notice that 40 appears a lot in the Bible. It's always 40 days and 40 nights. Jesus went into the mountains for 40 days. Noah had the flood or rain for 40 days and 40 nights for Noah. 40 is a really important number overall. And no, I don't think the rule of 40 appears because of the Bible, but it was just an interesting allegory. The rule of 40 states, You never want 40% or more of your debt to income ratio. You never want it to have a higher than 40% debt to income ratio, which I know realistically for most of us doesn't happen, but specifically 40% going to what we think of as debts, which are credit card payments, mortgages, blah, blah, blah. Not your mortgage, but everything else that's a debt. So credit card payments, loans, things of that nature. You want it to be less than 40% of your income. In addition, you want to use less than 40% of your revolving credit at any given time. I'm going to say that again. 40% of your income should not be going toward what we think of as debts, non-mortgage debts. 40% of your revolving credit should never be used at a time. If you can manage that rule of 40, you'll have a reasonably high credit score. That's a blanket. In my experience, that's what I've seen. There is nuance to that. There is nuance to that. It is not absolute. But that is the key to managing your debt. And it's important that you do so. And that's credit reports in a nutshell. They're really not as complicated as people think they are. The problem is that by accident or by design, I guarantee it's by design, the credit bureaus keep a lot of this on the hush-hush, and they do it because it makes it harder for the common person to break apart their little information cartel. And they're legal, so I shouldn't necessarily use the term cartel, but it's a legalized cartel. That data is very important to them. It's important that you know how to read the data. The credit report is a tool. It's an important tool. It tells not only you where you stand, but it also tells your employers. Some places won't give you a job if you got bad credit. Don't think of working for a bank if you got bad credit. Certain licenses you can't get certain licenses if you've got bad credit or if you're overwrought on debt. For instance, in my current state of Vermont, can you finish loading, please? Thank you. Rubber banding's a bitch. If you have more debt than assets, you can't hold security licenses, or you have to undergo strict supervision, which precludes you from a lot of securities-based jobs, and I mean that like investments. So all of these matter. Also, renting an apartment usually requires a 600 or better credit score. Yeah. So, okay. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe down below. We are on the road to 13 million subscribers, one subscription at a time, so make sure you subscribe. And as always, I really appreciate the support. Huge shout out to my patrons, Red Kryptonite, Jay Lambertson, Devin327, I didn't screw it up this time, Melky, and Robert J. Thank you so much for your support. If you want your name up on this board, please consider going to patreon.com/JulianMcBain, become a member, and we will see you in the next one.